A lot of tires. He's my go-to warehouse. He is right down the street. I go down there and pick up 20 sets if I need. Or if I call him and say I need 20 sets, he'd probably bring them. But Steve's going to talk to us about different types of tires today. We used to have 35 sizes on our cars. That, it would fit everything from the little car to the big truck. Everything was 35 sizes. Today, it's probably over 500 sizes. It's just ridiculous. A lot of people come to the counter, I need tires. What size do you need? Well, I don't know. We'll walk out the car, you have to look at the sticker. There's a lot to be learned on tires. You just don't know it all. So Steve is going to help us understand a little bit. Come on in, Steve.
All right.
And he's going to talk a little bit about himself, and then for his products, we're going to turn our chairs and look at the tires whenever he wants to. We're going to talk about that part of it. He's going to tell us a little bit about himself first.
Sure. Well, first of all, Todd, thanks for having me down today.
Absolutely.
I say my name's Stephen Paul. I'm the center manager for TCI Tire Centers, location number 384, right here in Columbia. As Todd mentioned, we're just down the street a few miles over on Fairfield Road. This is my first time actually presenting. I've actually been the center manager there since end of March. Been with the company for 3 years and been in the tire business for going on 9 years now. So tires, silly as it may sound, are something I'm passionate about. I love God, I love my family, I love my friends, I love cars, and then I like tires, especially wheels and tires. I'm very interested in the application of the tires, the fitment, the technology in them. A lot of people look at a tire and they think, well, that's just something I put on my car to get me from place to place. So there's a lot more to it than that. I'm not going to bore everybody with a whole lot of facts and figures, but we'll go over some of the token things, just because that's what you do in these sorts of things, right? Thanks, Todd. Just kind of a basic, real short, sweet history of tires. The first development that was made for tires was the vulcanized rubber process. Tires are not the same type of rubber as a rubber band or a pencil eraser or any other number of rubber. There's a special process they go through that helps them to be more durable, to last a long time. A lot of the products that TCI distributes and that Todd sells come with pretty long mileage warranties. If you think about it, that tire in your car is going to be on there for 30, 40, 50, 60, some of them up to 100,000 miles. So it takes a pretty special process to manufacture a product that can endure something like that. So the guy that actually invented the vulcanized rubber process was a guy named Goodyear, Charles Goodyear, back in the mid-1800s. In 1888 was the first invention of the air-filled tire. A lot of people ask, well, why are tires solid rubber? I'm always getting nails or I'm always damaging them. They should be solid. The problem is that would cut down a lot on your fuel mileage because you have a huge heavy object to try to turn as you're rolling. Also, it would just ruin your ride and your handling capabilities. So a guy named John Dunlop actually invented the air-filled tire in the late 1800s. And the company that owns TCI, the founder, Andre Michelin, was the first person to successfully use an air-filled tire on a production vehicle. And the first tubeless tire, which as you can see, none of these tires have tubes. We mount them on a rim, put a valve stem in there, fill them up with air, and that's all it takes. And that wasn't actually put into production until the mid-1900s. It was on the 1954 Packard was the first time that a tubeless tire was used on a production vehicle. So that's kind of the quick, short, and sweet history of how we get to the products that we have today. Our company, TCI Tire Centers, was founded by a man named James Berlin back in 1986. And he actually purchased a bunch of B.F. Goodrich stores. Now, B.F. Goodrich, as you guys see some of the different signage in here, is actually owned by Michelin. So, B.F. Goodrich at one time was separate. Michelin purchased B.F. Goodrich. James Berlin, founder of TCI Tire Centers, my company, purchased a bunch of B.F. Goodrich retail stores. In 1999, Michelin, in turn, purchased TCI Tire Centers back. So it kind of kept everything in the family. So we are owned by Michelin North America, which is in part Michelin Group, which is based out of France. And let's see here. Our location opened in late 2007. As I said, I've been there about 3 years now. We're a small team, much like a lot of small businesses. There's not a lot of us there. Typically we run 8 to 10 employees. But we partner with independent tire dealers such as Todd, Professional Tire and Radiator. We've got several hundred that we partner with throughout the state of South Carolina. We use different programs to help people such as Todd compete with the bigger box stores. As I'm sure Angela has got certain programs as well that benefit the small dealer. We've got programs, you see some of the signage that says T3 on it. That's actually a program that we use to provide auxiliary services such as advertising. There's internet-based products that are available. We do road hazard warranties, so in case Todd's customer damages a tire, he can say, hey, no problem, I got you covered, here's how we can take care of that for you.
It happens.
It does happen. It does happen. One of the big benefits that we can provide to Todd is the fact, just as he said, I heard him speaking to, I think he was speaking with you, but he was talking about the different levels of oil that he stocks. You know, our warehouse houses about 15,000 products. We were talking about the sizes. You know, years ago there was only 20, 30 sizes out there, and as you mentioned, everything ran that. Now I think we carry something around 1,500 different part numbers in stock. Like I say, we're close to around 13,000 in the warehouse. We just did inventory a couple weekends ago. And, you know, Todd doesn't have to hold on to all that product in one place. He doesn't worry about all that investment and all that liability because we can provide that for him. We can hold on to it when he needs it. He can run down and pick it up. We can bring it to him. And ultimately, that way he can provide better product to his customers than some of the larger stores that don't have that type of relationship. Trying to figure out how I want to go through this. And I apologize. This is, like I say, one of my first times presenting professionally. So, with the tire construction, I'd mentioned earlier, like I said, there's more to it than just a piece of rubber that sits on your car. I'm gonna roll it over here real quick, Todd. Okay. All right, this is a Uniroyal Tiger Paw. Uniroyal is another line that's owned by Michelin, another line that we distribute. Todd's going to roll another Michelin over here for us real quick.
It's kind of the cream of the crop here. This is what you want for your Cadillacs.
That's right. This would be a great example to kind of show some of the different features.
And outlast car.
That's right. That's right. Someone will. All right. So with the tire, there's a couple different things to keep in mind. The tires consisted of several different parts. The first and most obvious part is the actual tread of the tire. This is where you get your different patterns. This is what most people identify a tire as visually. As you'll see, there's different ones around here. Some of them are more aggressive, some of them are more subdued. But this is really the face of the tire. With the tread design, it's going to give you things like wet weather traction through the wide grooves. And again, you'll see this very common on the majority of tires. With your shoulder blocks, that helps lend your cornering stability. That's the part of the tire that as the vehicle leans and it corners, that's where you're getting your grip for that. The wide chunks of tread, and again, this is very common, that gives you a footprint. When you take the rubber, you subtract all this void air in between, that's what is making contact with the ground. A lot of people don't realize this, but tires are really the most important safety component of your vehicle. Before your brakes, before your airbags, the tires are the only thing that makes contact with the ground. So when you need to turn the wheel, it's not your airbags or your seatbelt that's going to take care of that, it's your tires. Tires are a very important part. After the tread, you've got the shoulder area. We can't see it, but there's actually reinforcements in the shoulder, and you can feel it if you start pushing on the tire, different things like that. But you've got shoulder reinforcements, and then you've got your sidewall. The sidewall is actually made of several layers of rubber. It also has polyester, sometimes nylon. On some of the heavy-duty applications, there's actually a layer of steel inside the sidewall. So even though it may not look like it, this is actually a very durable, very strong piece of rubber right here. After your sidewall, what you've got is the bead package. This is the part that actually seals the tire against the wheel. Inside the tire, again, it's a little hard to see, but there's actually an inner liner. So your tire actually has an outer layer of rubber, then it actually has layers of steel belts, nylon, polyester, and then it has an inner liner of rubber as well. What this does for us is in the past, 20, 30 years ago, tires were what we call a bias ply. What that meant was as the tire would roll and as the tire would wear, those belts had a tendency to shift, they could move, and it caused problems. With the modern construction, with all those different interlocking layers, those different liners of rubber, creates a much more durable product. As we mentioned earlier, this tire actually carries a 60,000 mile tread life warranty. This tire carries a 50,000 mile tread life warranty, and there are others that actually go all the way up to 70, 80, even 100,000 miles because of the technology in the tire. As we mentioned as well, when it comes to the size of the tire, a lot of people don't know what they have on the car. I'm sure not many of you got it this morning and thought about, I wonder what kind of condition my tires are in. I'm sure not many of you even necessarily know what tire is on there. It's a tire, right? So, a couple things that we'll talk about that'll make you smarter than the average bear is when you look at the tire, there's a series of numbers on the sidewall. We can see this one right here on the label. Well, this tire is a 235, 55, R17. The 235 is the width of the tire as expressed in millimeters. The second number, the 55, is what's known as the aspect ratio, and that's this height right here. And this is a percentage of the width. So this tire is 235 millimeters wide, and this is 55% of that. The third number, the 17, denotes your rim diameter. So, 17-inch tire is going to just fall right on a 16-inch rim. It's not going to work. Same thing, a 16-inch tire is not going to fit over a 17-inch rim. They don't stretch, do they, Todd? That sure doesn't.
They're gonna rip.
That's right. So, one thing that we see a lot in our business is customers or dealers that will call and say, hey, I need this tire. And we'll say, okay, do you know what kind of vehicle is going on? Well, no, my customer's told me that's what he needed. And a lot of times what happens is when we send that out and they don't verify what it goes on, the tire gets there and the customer misread the size, or the vehicle has aftermarket rims on it, or all sorts of things like that happen. We see it a lot with people that buy off the internet. You know, the internet can only tell you so much. It can tell you what should be there, but it's when you take it to a guy like Todd that can actually look at it, do the inspection, and say, you know what, this is actually the wrong tire. Did you buy this vehicle used? Well, yeah, that's what was on there when it came to me. And you know, those tires do wear out really fast. That's because they might be undersized, they might be the wrong application. Tires are designed to carry a load. That's why when you see a tire that's very low on air, that's damaging the tire because it can't properly support the weight of the vehicle. And that's really the number one cause for a tire that wears out prematurely, is that it's underrated for the weight of the vehicle. That's the benefit of coming to Todd, because Todd's been in the business and Todd knows what should be on there. You know, Todd can look at the vehicle, he can look at the tag. If Todd can't find the answer, sometimes there's people he can call that can actually help him out.
Yep.
So, tire maintenance is another thing, again, that we really don't think about on a daily basis. I'm sure I couldn't tell you the last time my tires were rotated, but I set up a reminder so I can keep track of it. If you take away nothing else from today, the biggest thing I can tell you is check your air pressure in your tires at least once a month. That is the number one thing that will help your tires to last longer, to ride safer, to ride smoother. Cannot remember the statistics, but there was a study done a couple years ago by the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration on single car accidents. And they found the leading cause of single car accidents after driver distraction from things such as cell phones or food or friends or whatever it might be. The number 2 cause of single car accidents was actually tire failure related to an underinflated tire. Because as that tire is underinflated, it actually heats up because it's basically kind of compressing down on that sidewall. And as it compresses, it starts to weaken. That heat will actually weaken the tire and subsequently can cause the tire to fail. So if nothing else, check your air pressure once a month. I'm sure Todd will be happy to check it for you. Perform a visual safety inspection. He can look for obvious things such as a puncture in the tire, if there's a nail or an object. He can look for uneven wear, which brings me to my next topic of tire maintenance, which is your vehicle's alignment. Todd, you do alignments here, don't you?
Sure.
There you go. One-stop shop. With the tire alignment, which is necessary, it keeps that tire riding in the correct plane. If your suspension is out, that tire tendency to lean, it can lean in, it can lean out, and the most damaging thing is actually a toe condition. And the toe condition is very hard to see, but what basically happens is that tire is essentially drug along and it's not rolling properly. That again, coupled with improper inflation, will kill a tire in no time flat. The last part of the tire maintenance is your tire rotations. Todd, what do you recommend for a tire rotation?
Depends on the vehicle. Front wheel drive is easiest remembered by every other oil change. And then you have your trucks, SUVs, 6 to 8,000, 8 to 10,000 at the most. By 10,000, everything's gonna need a rotator. It's a visual thing.
Right.
You want your best tires on the front of the vehicle. But if they start to cut, he was talking about the alignment where if the alignment is out, what'll happen on this tire is you'll get, this tread block will be worn low. The one right next to it will be high. It's called cupping.
Right.
And it's easy to determine. I use my hand. Of course, new tires, not going to show you. If it were cupping, if it were high, low, take your hand and run it across the tread, you would see your fingers jump like that. You'll feel it. Check your front tires when you're in your car. You'll probably see something. That could mean that your air pressure or your alignment's going to be a little bit off. You're not getting the value out of your tire and buying them more often. And I read something that was one out of every 5 tires is underinflated on the highway today.
Yep.
And I'm driving right next to them.
Yep.
You're driving right next to them.
So is that why all those like tire pieces are in the road? That's where like people's tire pressure or
That is a big cause of it. A lot of what you see as well on the highway is recaps on semi-truck tires, which totally different topic. A very lengthy discussion on that one. The recaps are very common. There's very debate on how safe they are, how they're actually put on. But a lot of times, yeah, what you'll see when you see a tire that's shredded on the road, if it's not a recap from a large truck, a lot of times it is related to a low tire pressure. Yes, ma'am.
What are related? I have a question about that too. When I know a lot was on the news last year, it's usually on the news about the tires when it's over 100 degrees out, on the highway, things like that. What do you recommend? I mean, as far as the air pressure and things like that, are you recommending that we drive less during that time, or?
That's a great question. One thing that I've seen, even on the news, there's a lot of different topics that the media will cover when it comes to tires. Obviously, we all rely on tires. I know I drove here. I know I drive every day. There were roughly 220 million tires sold in the U.S. last year. So that's a lot of people rolling on a lot of tires. Two of the topics that seem to get covered a lot in the media are the tire age, which I'm going to talk about in just a moment, and then the air pressure. One thing that you'll see said sometimes is to look at the tire and see what it recommends. Don't go off what the tire recommends. What that will tell you, if you finish reading all the way around, is that this tire is rated to carry a certain amount of weight at a maximum air pressure. So if you're driving a heavy truck and you're towing a boat or you're loading down the back, you want to make sure that you're maxed out because you're carrying a lot of weight. But the best practice is to, again, if you look inside your driver's door, some vehicles will have a placard under the fuel cap, or even in the owner's manual. Additionally, Todd can look it up if for some reason it's been painted over or somebody scraped it off, or maybe you got an aftermarket application which isn't what came on the vehicle. For most vehicles, it's roughly 32 PSI. If it's on a truck, something a little heavier, you might run 35 to 38. On a heavy-duty vehicle, it might be as much as 65 or 80 PSI. As far as driving in the summer, if the tire is properly inflated, you really shouldn't have much issue. It is true that there are more tire failures when it gets hotter because, again, heat is really the #1 enemy of a tire. And when it's running underinflated and then it's in a hot condition and it's on an extremely hot road surface, it just contributes to a faster failure. As I mentioned earlier, talking about the age of the tire, there's a number on the sidewall, and you'll see it says DOT, and then typically it's a 12-digit number. And what you'll hear about on the news on 60 Minutes and 2020 and Inside Edition, all these different things, they talk about a tire that's sitting on a shelf for a long time. I think Walmart and Sam's, a couple other big stores have problems with this. Again, you're not going to see that from Todd because Todd isn't buying tires and stocking them sitting on forever. We take care of that. We manage our inventory. When a tire reaches a certain age, we actually destroy the tire and remove it from sales basically, so it can't be sold and installed. Typically, what's recommended, you won't find a hard and fast policy from any manufacturer, from any automaker, but typically what's recommended is that no tire older than 7 years be installed. and that no tire older than 10 years remain in service. But the most important thing is simply to have the tire inspected. Because what can happen is that tire can actually start to deteriorate. You'll hear it referred to as dry rot. Sometimes it's referred to as weather cracking or weather checking. There's a certain level of that you'll see after a few years that really is only cosmetic. But over time, that can progress into an actual problem. So the most important thing with the tires is have them inspected at least once a year for a full visual inspection, just to make sure that there's not anything going on, because it's hard to see sometimes down in those grooves when the tire is on the vehicle that's under that wheel well. That's the benefit of getting into a shop, having it in the air, and having someone do a visual inspection to look for problems such as that. Last thing I want to talk about was different tire applications. Again, I wish I could have had some time to get some more displays together with me, but basically there are different styles of tire. Both of these are what are commonly referred to as a passenger or touring type tire. As you can see, there's really nothing very fancy about the tread. It's very smooth, it's very basic. The tires have a tall sidewall, as opposed to on a sports car, you'll see a very thin sidewall. Or what's also becoming very popular is 20 plus sizes, 20s, 22s, 24s, 26s. So let's say this tire has the taller sidewall, and that shorter sidewall, the tire will have a lot more reinforcements in the sidewall of the tire to support the weight because it doesn't have as much mass. You'll also see on the sports tires, these tread blocks will be a lot larger, which helps give the tire better road holding. It can corner better, it can brake harder. When the driver's accelerating, it gives more traction to propel the car forward. The other thing you'll see a lot is on the off-road tires. You'll see large tread blocks with much larger gaps in between. Part of this will actually cause that roll, 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 roll that you hear on the road from the big trucks sometimes, because there's a lot of air actually moving across that tire as it's rolling. But when that driver is off-road and he's in the mud, or he's out in the field, or he's chasing deer down a trail, that tire's going to be able to get him out because it's got you to dig in and get that grip. That's pretty much all I've got today. Are there any other questions that I can answer?
I came in late, so you may have covered this. What about nitrogen in tires?
That's another good question. Nitrogen is another very popular topic right now. It's been around in racing applications for years and years and years. And nitrogen does have some benefits, but it also has some drawbacks. The number one benefit to nitrogen is the nitrogen molecules, if you were looking at them under a microscope, are much larger and slower moving than a regular oxygen molecule would be. The benefit to that is, even though this tire seems completely solid and it will be mounted on a rim, sealed up, and it will hold air pressure, the tire rubber is actually still porous and air will escape from the tire over time, which is why it's important to check your air pressure at least once a month. Now with nitrogen, because those molecules are larger and they're slower moving, it takes a much, much longer time for that same amount of air pressure loss to occur. On a standard air-filled tire, it can lose 1 to 3 psi a month just from that porous nature of the design. Whereas a nitrogen-filled tire could take 6 months to a year to lose the same amount. So there are definitely benefits there. One of the drawbacks to nitrogen, though, is the cost right now. To have a nitrogen-filled tire, the dealer needs to have a specialized system installed with a nitrogen tank. There's some special filling tools. The dealer needs to actually basically vacuum the existing air out of the tire and refill it with nitrogen. There is cost associated with that, but one day that technology, as all technology does, will become more prevalent and become lower cost. The point will become a lot more common. Many new car manufacturers are actually offering that as an option right now. As you mentioned, the summer driving, air actually has a tendency in a tire to expand as it gets hot, which is why when they tell you to check your air pressure, they tell you to check it when it's cold. And the reason that air expands and nitrogen does not is because air actually has a little bit of water in it. And that water is actually what causes that pressure fluctuation as the tire gets hot or gets cold. Now the lack of fluctuation is what makes it so beneficial for race car drivers, because on a racetrack, that tire is going to experience a very wide range of temperatures. And that's why for the race cars, it's worth the extra cost, because it gives them more consistency throughout the duration of the event. Like I say, at one point, it will come down in cost to the point where probably everyone will have nitrogen. It just hasn't reached that point yet. Really, you can get the same benefit if you check your air pressure once a month, and you save yourself quite a bit of money up front.
In case anybody's curious as to that nitrogen tire fill machine, $10,000.
That's right.
And that's all it does.
Yep.
Make